Oh, let me tell you something. Busting makes me feel good.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Blockbusting, the podcast where we love to hate the movies. I'm your host, Jay Light. Joining me today, Gage Tijerina.
Hello.
Hello, Gage. What a day. What a day to be podcasting.
Distracting. I was watching the movie and I had the news on at both times, and weirdly enough, my brain was trying to connect the two and how somehow what's happening today and the way this movie was written are connected.
Dude, I mean, if they sent in a bunch of clones of Will Smith to stop what's going on at the Capitol right now, I mean, we wouldn't be here. There would be no problems.
A whole army of fearless, amazing super soldiers.
I mean, I will say, we're talking about Gemini Man today, in case you listeners have not gathered that already. And I want to kind of give this movie a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, because it is hard to pay attention to any movie when there is a coup attempt happening in your country. But even if this movie was good, I still don't think that it would outsize what's going on in Washington, D.C. right now.
Not just a coup attempt, but like a really hilarious coup attempt. There's some characters that are emerging from this coup attempt. There's a guy that's wearing what I can only describe as a neo-Viking outfit that has he made his way to the front and was taking pictures.
I saw that guy. He was on the Senate floor. Coup. He had some Coachella gear on. I saw somebody tweeted who I follow. They said, this is like watching Black Friday at Cabela's.
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
Bass
it's
Pro
really
Shop,
weird. We've gotten to such a place in American politics where we're like, it's meta. There's parody happening within the political events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's irony happening deep within what's going on right now. I saw
SNL is gonna have a really hard time to make this funnier than it is. I mean, I don't know how you put like Andy Samberg in the middle of all that wearing his Viking outfit from the Natalie Portman
Natalie Rapp
music video. Yeah,
I did see right before we started recording, I was watching the live feed from NBC News, and there's people on top of an armored car yelling at protesters to come back, even though the DC mayor just issued a curfew. And there was a fat guy wearing a Guy Fawkes mask, and I did not think that people like that truly existed outside of the internet. It was so surreal to see that in person and not just think like, oh, this is just some guy who like plays D&D online in his basement all the time and just has a V for Vendetta heart on. But they're out there.
Yeah, they're out there. They're all there. All of them are there right now.
Every single one of them is there right now. I can't wait to see what happens in the next hour. We're gonna be checking in. We'll check in after this podcast episode's done. But for now, let's laser focus in on Gemini Man, a 2019 American action thriller film directed by Ang Lee, starring Will Smith, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Clive Owen, Benedict Wong, and Ralph Brown. The film follows a retiring hitman who is targeted by a much younger clone of himself while on the run from the government. It's been in development hell for 20 years. Harrison Ford, Mel Gibson, and Sean Connery were all attached to star at some point, along with Tony Scott or Curtis Hanson or Joe Carnahan chosen to direct. Critically maligned, box office bomb. I mean, this movie's kind of a no-brainer, I think, for things that should have been cool but turned out to be middle of the road to bad. And you said you've been wanting to talk about this movie for a long time. So what's your beef, Gage? Give us the rundown.
Yeah, I mean, you put it very well. That my exact thoughts is that this should be so very cool, and the idea of it with the technology that we have now, because you named off a few people that were supposed to be involved in it, and I don't know if I missed it, if it cut out, but Clint Eastwood was supposed to do this too.
Oh, he was?
Like that's how long.
God.
That's how long this has been in the works. Is that like Clint Eastwood was still like I read that it says the original script was written for Clint Eastwood. I don't know if that's directing or acting, but if it is acting, I mean, it's a long.
Yeah, I'm looking at this list. This is a really long list. All the people who could have been the lead in this movie, and they were actually attached. Harrison Ford, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Michael Douglas, Chris O'Donnell, Mel Gibson, Tommy Lee Jones, Kevin Costner, Pierce Brosnan, Bruce Willis, John Travolta, Jon Voight, Denzel Washington, Johnny Depp, Nicolas Cage, Brad Pitt, Keanu Reeves, Tom Cruise, Clint Eastwood, Gerard Butler, Nick Nolte, Sylvester Stallone, and Sean Connery. So that was 24 actors who they went through with this movie and couldn't get this movie made.
And they all have their own era of like what was seen as the action star of the time. There's just you can just by the names alone you can tell how long.
I'm so sorry. I forgot to read a whole row of actors on that movie too. There's so many. I just literally glossed over it on Wikipedia. There's also Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Jason Statham, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Michael B. Jordan, Idris Elba, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's oh god, it really is just like a who's who of who was a fun action star at some point in their life. Yeah,
and Will Smith has been incredibly unlucky with what he's attached himself to within like the action films, like the sci-fi stuff that he's done it has just really been bad for his image, to me at least. And I was hoping that this was going to be something different from him, because I did watch After Earth, right? That was the last notable sci-fi bomb that he was in.
Yeah, him and Jaden Smith. M. Night Shyamalan, I think, right? Yeah.
So I was hoping that it would be, it's definitely better than that one, but like, I was hoping that there would be some, redeemable quality that Will Smith had attached himself to another like sci-fi thing like this, but it was just very disappointing because it should be cool. We technically, obviously most of the film, the de-aging and CGI, the tracking, all that stuff is very good. So it was competent enough to where it did not distract from the story most of the time. At the end, it really dropped in quality. For some reason, the ending, the CGI was completely different. I don't know what they did differently when they produced it, but technically this film should have worked for the premise, but there are so many things that weigh it down.
I think
cancel that out.
There's so much potential in this idea. Like conceptually, it's a fun idea. It feels very much like a movie that should have been made in the 90s or the early 2000s. And casting Will Smith in it, I feel like puts my brain in that sort of mindset anyway of like, oh, okay, that's sort of the whole purpose of you get somebody who is recognizable in the 90s from doing action movies and put him in this aged version. It's like, oh, this should be working like gangbusters, right? And you get a good competent director in there, and then you have all this technical stuff in addition to the face mapping and the aging. They have this they're shooting it in HDR, and they have like 120 FPS, and it just doesn't land. The script is bad. the characters are very flimsy, paper thin. The performances are okay. Like, I think Will Smith and Mary Elizabeth Winstead do an all right job. And I think Benedict Wong, it feels like he's in a completely different movie, and they just dropped him into this one.
Yeah, dude. And I just have to say, because I don't know if we're going to go through this film step by step, synopsis wise, but I've never said this before. I've never thought that you could make a white ethnicity offensive as shit, but this Russian guy that they have in the movie is offensive as shit. I don't know how they did it, but
he's so bad.
It hurt my feelings, and I'm not even Russian. It was bad. It's literally like a child's Russian joke version of a Russian character.
Yeah, it's like Yakov Smirnoff if Yakov Smirnoff got hit on the head by Gallagher's mallet.
Yeah, it's really bad. He literally is this I'm Russian and we do things differently. That's kind of the line that he has after every response, that Will Smith is feeding him actual dialogue, and he's just like, yes, you are American and I am Russian. That's basically his whole storyline, and you're led to believe that he's like this mole or something with some sort of information that's going to break apart this conspiracy, but it just becomes like an offensive caricature of a Russian man. I mean, they meet in a spa.
Yeah, they meet in they're like in a bathhouse.
So weird.
Towels. It's very weird.
Man. That was a performance that I was just like, that doesn't fit. Everybody else is pretty plastic and the dialogue's pretty plastic, but they jumped the shark with they're like, how far can we take just forcing this plot, forward,
Right. I want to know what it was like for you the first time you saw this movie. Did you see it in theaters? Were you hyped to see this movie, or did you just watch it on a whim?
Well, see, this is an interesting thing that the pandemic has done for me is I had all these movies that I knew about that I did not want to see in theaters. I was afraid to, because the idea is very cool. Trailers are, they're, focus, there's lots of focus studies that are done to make trailers very interesting. I really like the idea, but I avoided this until a month ago. And I've been thinking about it every day. And then it's really been a part of this series of movies that I have avoided, that I'm just I'm doing nothing at home. I might as well watch these movies and try to figure out what's wrong with these things that Hollywood's been putting out. Literally, earnestly, what is the ideological source, and what do I see in all of these movies that makes it so fucking bad? And that the Invisible Man was a part of that. I mentioned that to you, but it's just a part of these movies where I'm like, okay, why do I not like it, even though it's supposed to be cool,
Yeah.
So watching this the first time, I was skeptical, but I wanted to like it. So the first time I watched through it, I was just trying to follow along with the story, and trying to take what was good from it, and then I just give everything the benefit of the doubt. For the beginning of it, I'm just denying that it's bad, just deliberately. I'm trying to delude myself that it's okay that they're doing this, because there's got to be some payoff. I have to suspend my disbelief.
Right.
And then it gets to a point where I can't do it any longer. Then I pretty much know why at that point, if I attack it from that angle, instead of just hating it from the beginning. But the second time I watched it, that was when I realized just how bad the dialogue is. Once I already know what's happening, the second time I'm watching through it, I'm like, man, the dialogue's really bad.
Is really dog shit in this movie. It's got that sort of Chris Nolan-y expository element to it, where almost every single line of dialogue is not doing anything besides just saying something that will move the plot forward instead of allowing you to have the characters develop at all. But it doesn't have the fun energy that Christopher Nolan keeps with his movies. Yeah. Like, this movie is a highfalutin of a concept to some degree as anything that I think a director like Chris Nolan would try. But it has nothing but just basic cable Saturday afternoon. You're only watching it because it's just what's on energy to it. And you just, it's just enough, visually striking enough to keep you focused and be like, oh, this is a cool shot. They're doing a lot of fun, bright buildings in this place. Oh, there's somebody on fire. Cool. But they even fuck that up too. Like, they have shots that are so dark you can't see what's going on. And you can barely pay attention to what's going on with the dialogue.
Yeah, which is just really bad for, I mean, it's really bad when you do mention like how they shot this, and there's technically competent, I mean, it's pretty technically competent, but there are some moments where you're like, I don't even know where I'm at. But, it's like we said before we started, like, it's very sterile. Mm-hmm. And there's multiple aspects of a movie like this that make it sterile, like, it's really, really overproduced. Nothing's like dirty. Nothing's lived in. Right. Nothing's lived in. There's no, he's not even, like, his house and Will Smith's character, Henry Brogan, isn't even like a lived in character. Yeah.
Which is really bad when the whole premise of the movie is, oh, this guy is he's a retiring sniper who's had all of this history of like doing these crazy assassinations and being like the top absolute best guy to the point where somebody has to clone him.
Yeah, which these Hollywood movies, when they write characters like this, I find that a lot of time they go halfway with the character's disposition in relation to how we would socially perceive him, Like, socially, we would perceive Will Smith, if it was a real person, if Henry Brogan was a real guy, there would be, some people that would be like, this dude is a fucking monster. Like, how can you, he says that he killed 72 people. Right. That's his kill count, and most people be like, oh, you got to be a cold fucking dude. But then, like, there's times where he's like humorous, and it's like, in what world would his, like, in what world is he charming? Like, why would he be charming? He's not an operative that's like doing psyops or anything like this, like on the field interacting with people. He's a sniper. He is literally isolated within his occupation. And so it made no sense for me, like, particularly the dinner scene or the date scene where he's like taking her on a date. It's just like, this isn't the same guy that's killed 72 people. Like, he's not James Bond. He's a CIA asset, or in this movie, it's called the DIA.
The DIA,
you're not allowed you're not allowed to directly reference, American institutions,
Right. So, any American institution that does bad things is not something that's real. Gemini, nah. We wouldn't torture people. Absolutely not. We wouldn't train death squads. That's Gemini. That's fictional.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny because they're so ideologically separated. That's the biggest thing for me in this movie is, like, they're so ideologically separated. The people who write these movies, especially within this genre, they are so separated from reality that they have to, they're making up this character that is also diluted with how these clandestine operations operate. Like even Henry Brogan is diluted. Like he's like, "What? You tricked me into killing innocent people?"
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, dude, why would you even care? You've killed 72 people. You have to be a certain type of person, you know?
Yeah. Why are you even questioning what anybody does to you at this point, Henry? You're a tool. You're a tool
and
to be executed as you need.
And they also like they make it seem like this is a an offshoot hidden program that's led by one guy. You know, it's this one guy, and he's just morally a piece of shit. He's a manipulator, and it's like, no, it's like it's just weird to me that they can make the story much better if they just admit that this might be a system that does exist, and Henry does know about it.
Right.
So like the story is about like, it would be much better if they remove the part of the story where he's surprised about that and is trying to like make things right for doing that. It's like,
yeah,
no, he would be a part of that. And that's okay to make a story about that.
I 100%. I think that an easy way to improve this movie would be to make it like the marketing, where I knew, having watched the trailer, exactly what the crux of this movie was, which is that Will Smith is fighting a younger version of himself who is cloned. You can figure that out immediately upon watching the trailer. It is not it's not a fucking surprise. But in the movie, it is played out and not revealed to be the actual truth of what's going on until about an hour in, where they finally are like, "We're clones, man. You're my clone DNA." If they had just known from the jump what the audience knew, the audience is so much smarter than the characters in this movie, and it doesn't work. Sometimes that works in a movie. In like horror movies, it kind of works because then you can still get the feeling of like, oh, don't go in there. But in this, it just doesn't fucking make sense.
And it really forces them to rush the development of Junior's character too.
Right.
Like the fact that they offset the discovery of this character, like it makes his like radically different change of his, his mindset towards this program seem like, wow, anything could have convinced this guy like to not like it didn't have to be Will Smith. It didn't have to be Henry Brogan revealing that he's a clone. Like he was, already like kind of in the background of his thoughts, like suspicious of this whole thing. And
right.
He turned on this dude that's supposed to be his dad the whole time. That literally like babies him. Like I wrote down that like in the background of Junior's room, there's toys.
Yeah.
There's toys in his room, and he's like 23 years old. And like Clive Owen is like basically rubbing his back and shit. Like, it makes much more sense. Yeah. To like immediately have to, he notices that, by the way, the scene where he discovers that like he looks like him is like so anticlimactic, but also like it's a cool way to do it, right? But like then it takes like 3 more scenes for him to finally admit like, yeah, he like looked like me. It's basically me. Like
there's so
it
much
was so weird how they made him like deny it. He didn't even acknowledge it. It was weird.
They even had in that scene, because it like I said, there's a lot of really competent, interesting directing that happens here. I think visually it's very striking. There's a lot of really cool moments, cool shots. And the shot where you're seeing through the scope on on Henry Brogan's gun, that you see the guy's face for the first time, and you see it's young Will Smith. You see it's Junior. That's a really cool shot, but it betrays the character in that moment for him to not shoot the guy. He's a cold-blooded killer. He would not hesitate.
No. And even more so, like Henry is much more of a cold-blooded killer than Junior is, and this is shown at the end of the movie too.
Right.
But Junior is like, I mean, he saw a picture of Will Smith, right? He knows who he's going after. So like, this is like, it's kind of weird, like this revelation of like, I'm you. Did you not notice? And it's
Right.
like, but you didn't notice either. Like, it makes no sense to like, it's weird that they don't confront that immediately. But that's because the reason for that is because they do that revelation in the middle of the movie. So they have to like have some pretend space of time where they don't really understand it, but it doesn't make sense, you know? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
God. So yeah, and when we get to the very end of the movie where they're like working together, we have a weird scene, the fight scene that happens in a hardware store, where they're fighting a faceless, automaton of some kind that Clive Owen has sent, and then it's revealed to be another clone, which just, again, feels so anticlimactic. It's so telegraphed. It's so obvious that that's what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's so, I mean, the most interesting thing about that whole sequence to me, there were two shots that I really liked. There was one where he's on fire and they do the slow-mo, him walking towards while he's on fire, getting shot by the shotgun. And also the fact that Gorilla Glue managed to get some sweet product placement in this movie. Whole shelf of Gorilla Glue products, right? When they crash land through the roof of the hardware store.
Yeah. There's a lot of weird product placement throughout the movie.
There's so much weird product
just
placement.
Like, it's like weird. It's weird. There's the truck. There's the Coca-Cola.
The Coca-Cola or Stella Artois choice. I can't have a Coke on a day like today, man.
You're retiring? Let me get a Stella.
I need a beer.
There's that part of the movie was weird, and not only because of, it's the end of the movie, so like all of the contradictions in the movie are going to become so apparent at that point. But the weirdest one to me was like, and it's predictable what happens, but it's also like, it's a cheap thing to do where it was like, he tells Junior, he's like, don't kill him because you're going to, break off a piece of your soul or whatever. And so he hands him the gun and he just shoots him right in front of him. And it's like, it's still going to emotionally damage him. This isn't a Horcrux. Like,
I mean, that's the other thing too, is like, if their whole premise is you're making clones that feel no emotions and feel no pain, but you fucked up so bad along the way, you've got clones who are feeling emotions. Why don't you just kill the clone who feels the emotions and start fresh with a new one, Clive Owen?
And it was weird, like how the scene where Henry Brogan is soul reading Junior in the catacombs, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna guess that he took you hunting or something like that. And it was just like super weird. Like, wow, like you're even though he's your clone, like how would you assume that he took you hunting and he basically was like, he groomed you to be this person? Which the funniest part was when he goes, you're 23 years old, you're still a virgin, right? It's like, damn.
I got roasted. What is this? One of your TikTok videos?
Yeah,
Influencer
dude,
Will Smith?
I was waiting for the
Rogan?
fucking roast battle fucking air horn to play, dude.
Oh my God. I mean, that would have made this movie better for sure. There's a lot of things that would have made this movie better. What I really want to know from you is, out of the entire litany of actors who were attached to this movie at some point, I think Will Smith does okay. But I feel like there are a lot of choices in that list who would have done better with this role. Who would you like to see have played the lead in Gemini Man?
Well, it all comes down to, there are certain people that have, personalities that you cannot separate from them and their characters. One of the funnier casting choices that I saw, which I've always said that I love Nicolas Cage. Unironically, I think he's a great actor. I literally think that he is an amazing actor.
I'm with you there.
But,
I said I'm with you there, 100%.
When people let him do what he wants to do, he can legitimately make a bad movie better just based off of him alone. And also in the movies that are good that he's in, it's because he commits himself to something and he just never misses. When he's in that space of being able to do what he is able to do in a very serious role. So, but Nicolas Cage attached to this is not a movie that Nicolas Cage looks good in, and it's not going to make the movie better. Right. But Will Smith also has that kind of property where if he's in an action movie, and particularly if he's in a sci-fi movie, he's always the guy who's like, he's basically like, he plays it like he's a character in a movie. Like, what would I say in this situation? What would Will Smith say to this very serious, this debacle that I'm in? It's like the Welcome to Earth line in Independence Day.
Right.
Who would say that besides Will Smith? So yeah, I think that did you ask like who would I choose? I don't know.
Who would you choose instead of Will Smith? But it sounds like maybe Will Smith could have been the only one who could have done it.
It's possible. But I think that you mentioned Keanu Reeves. I think that Keanu Reeves is great for this because you can't separate him from the John Wick series, So basically, you just put him in this, right? And he's still Henry Brogan. He's not John Wick, but his reputation as John Wick allows some idea of, you can see Keanu Reeves being effective, and but then again, John Wick is also a character that is written correctly.
Right.
He's not somebody that you want him to be. He's not like Bruce Willis being, like funny during these action scenes where he's killing people. He's very serious, but Keanu is not going to take this role where he's forced to say these lines and be this multi-dimensional character where some of those dimensions of his character don't make sense.
Right.
And the dialogue really even if you want to make him funny, it just doesn't work. The dialogue is there's one thing that I wrote down. It's one thing that I wrote down because this is one of the most egregious ones, and how Will Smith acted it too. I'm just like, what? Why? This is the line. He says, 72 kills, Del. That shit starts to mess with you a bit. Deep down, it's like my soul is hurt. I just want some peace. And he reads it basically like that.
Maybe you should have been.
What the fuck?
Maybe you should have been the lead in Gemini Man.
I'm not saying, because what you have to do to make that line make sense is, which by the way, it sounds like he's talking to his fucking therapist.
Yes.
That he's feeding lines to. If you were really that guy, you don't have the disposition that Will Smith has during that movie. The whole time he's kind of just like, yeah, what can I say? I'm out. What can I say? I'm out. Suddenly after 72 kills and firing off a really risky shot, I'm worried about this little girl that could have died, And what bothers me is I was aiming for his neck and I hit him in the head, and not the fact that I just fucking kill the guy. Anyways, my soul is ripped apart, dude. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
It really doesn't. Well, I will say, I can see why this movie has some appeal. It's good background noise while you're watching the fall of America. Definitely very light entertainment. You don't need to be paying close attention to it. What's a movie, though? You watched a lot of movies during quarantine, during the pandemic. What's something that was something you were surprised you liked that you'd recommend to people, or something that you think is, a classic you found?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I'm going to have to think about that. It's very hard to find, especially because when I watch stuff like this, I really do feel like there's a real bad ideological problem that these Hollywood films come from.
Right.
That really, it ruins it, and that it can't be good because it comes from a place where, from the very, very beginning of these movies, the characters are just coming from a weird place. It's hard to say. I've been hating a lot of movies recently. I watched The Invisible Man.
Invisible Man is pretty bad. Pretty middle of the road.
Yeah, you talked about that one.
Yep.
Let me go through my Netflix history. I did watch The Mandalorian, but that's a show. I did like The Mandalorian pretty.
I've heard great things. I gotta watch it. I still haven't. I even sprung for the Disney Plus Hulu bundle, and I still haven't gotten around to it. And all of my friends are mad at me because they can't spoil anything in the chat.
I did one movie I watched in quarantine was Death of Stalin. I really liked that.
Okay.
Have you seen that?
I have. I was not as big of a fan of it as everybody is. I liked. I guess I probably ought to watch it again because I think I went in there expecting it to be too much like In the Loop or Veep, and it just didn't. It's more serious than those other Armando Iannucci properties. And Steve Buscemi and Jeffrey Tambor and all the other folks playing the various roles in that are very good, but. Yeah, something about it didn't hit for me the way that it did for other people. I should give it another watch.
I really like Russian history, and I really like the history. I'm very much into the history of the Soviet Union, and so that movie was entertaining to me for that reason. And I thought it was funny. I like British humor, and that was very British. I also really liked Soul. That was a more recent one. I liked Soul a lot.
Oh yeah, I gotta check out Soul.
But see, that's the difference between, and obviously Gemini Man and Soul are two completely different movies. But Soul is good to me because it comes from a place where people are I don't know, ideologically coming from of a good position.
Right.
And with the right intentions and what story they're trying to tell. Whereas with Gemini Man, I think that they're just it's Will Smith and he's got a clone and he looks like the Fresh Prince.
And that's enough, isn't it? But we all know it's not enough. Well, don't watch Gemini Man. Go watch something else. Gage. It's so good to see you again, man. Thanks so much for doing the show.
Yeah.
Where can the listeners find you if they want to see what's going on?
I'm at Gage Tijerina on everything. It's GageTijerina. You can hear all my other stupid shit that I say. I do want to say one more thing. Really quick thing.
Say it.
One about
Say
this.
it.
There's another line of dialogue that really bothers me. Henry says, "Why didn't they clone doctors or scientists? Why did they clone me and not someone like Nelson Mandela?" And Danny says, Nelson Mandela couldn't kill a man on a moving train from 2 kilometers away. And I just want to say, we don't know that for a fact.
We don't know that. Nelson Mandela has a very particular set of skills.
It's never been tested. So I don't know.
Should put a gun in his hands.
And that's my last word about this movie. I don't know if anything else I said made sense.
Well, go follow Gage on social media. You can follow me at Diet J on Twitter and Instagram. And if you like the show, tell a friend, leave a review. Please consider supporting us on Patreon. You can get access to bonus episodes in the Blockbusting Film Club and all sorts of fun stuff. And yeah, that's it. Gage, thanks again, dude.
Thanks for having me.
This has been Blockbusting. Go see something good for a change.